Ahsoka was like a sister to Anakin, and by the end of the Clone War, their bond was unbreakable. When Ahsoka left the Order, Anakin felt betrayed, both by her and the Jedi Council. He was lost, distraught, and broken. But what if instead of Ahsoka leaving the Order, she died during the Clone War? Let's begin in the last year of the Clone War. Ahsoka was sent to Ilum with a group of younglings to carry out the Gathering, a task where a youngling finds a kyber crystal for their first lightsaber. The whole group was successful, and was making their way back to Coruscant until their ship was overrun by Hondo and his gang of pirates who took them back to Florin. They managed to escape captivity, but before they could leave the planet, General Grievous and his forces invaded the world and they were thrust into battle. The Jedi were forced to fight alongside the pirates in order to escape, but seizing the moment, Ahsoka guided the younglings towards a nearby ship to escape. However, just as they seemed to be in the clear, she noticed Grievous was hot on their tail. Realizing they wouldn't make it to their ship in time, Ahsoka makes the fateful decision to confront the general despite being outmatched and had to fulfill her duty to protect the younglings. Grievous ignites his 4 sabers and the two engage in a duel. Ahsoka employs her nimble acrobatic fighting style, attempting to outmaneuver her opponent. But Grievous, who had claimed the lives of countless Jedi, was too skilled and powerful and read every move she made. She somersaults over Grievous. However, he anticipated the move, striking down with his 4 lightsabers. Ahsoka managed to block, but she felt the immense pressure as he bore down on her. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw the younglings successfully take off in the escape ship, and in that moment, she knew she had achieved her mission. But just as this realization struck, Grievous shattered her defenses, impaling her abdomen with his lightsabers. When the younglings return to Coruscant, they break the news of Ahsoka's death to the Council. Obi-Wan puts his head in his hands, not just for Ahsoka's death, but because he knows how this will affect Anakin. The Council has asked Kenobi to retrieve her body and bring her back to Coruscant, but knows he must tell Anakin first. He travels to his quarters in the Jedi Temple to find him tinkering with some machine. Anakin can instantly tell something is wrong from the look on Obi-Wan's face, who tells Anakin the truth. General Grievous had killed Ahsoka Tano. Anakin's eyes go wide. He can't believe it. She can't be dead. He demands to go with Obi-Wan to retrieve her body on Florin, who obliges. They land on the desolate planet, and the sins of war are evident. They travel to the supposed coordinates and begin searching as Anakin lays eyes upon his fallen apprentice. He kneels down next to her and turns her body over to show her lifeless expression. Tears begin to trickle down his face as he can't bear to look at her. He feels a complex tapestry of emotions, guilt, loss, and regret. How could this happen? He promised himself he would become stronger, strong enough to protect those around him, and Ahsoka paid with her life. But Anakin's emotions quickly changed to fear, anger, and hatred. This was no accident. Ahsoka had been killed by General Grievous, and he must avenge her death. They bring Ahsoka's body back to the Jedi Temple, and Anakin carries her corpse through the main doors, Jedi watching all around. The funeral is held that night with Jedi and friends who all feel the emotion bursting out of Anakin. Padme stands next to Obi-Wan in tears. She loved Ahsoka and saw her as a younger sister, and her death truly pained her. But Obi-Wan looks at Anakin and knows this event has changed him. He's never been able to truly manage his emotions, but now he's completely lost control. Anakin looks upon Ahsoka's body as she descends into her tomb, and his conviction is true. He knows what to do. General Grievous will pay with his life. He leaves first and goes to the War Operations Room to investigate the details around Ahsoka's mission. He needed someone to blame other than himself, and he would find it. The Jedi had been tracking Grievous's movements for some time now, and he looks up these records. He can't believe what he's reading. The Jedi knew Grievous's forces had been moving towards the Florim system, and a potential invasion was imminent. Yet the Council sent Ahsoka on that route anyway, with no regard for her safety. Ahsoka's death is the Council's fault. They should have never sent her, or sent her off with more Jedi. Their negligence resulted in her death. Anakin will deal with Grievous first, and the Council later. He downloads the data on Grievous's movements and heads off world straight away. For the next couple of weeks, all Anakin focused on was Grievous. He tracked his location from planet to planet, forcefully getting information on his movements from the locals and high-class separatist leaders. All he focused on was revenge and power. He must get stronger so that nothing like this can happen to the ones he cares about ever again. And in his rage, his power increases. he slowly began to tap into the shallows of the dark side and use his emotions to guide him in his pursuit. Palpatine can sense this on Coruscant and is overwhelmed with joy. He decides to aid Anakin in his pursuit of revenge and orders Grievous to take himself along with a small portion of his fleet to Dantooine. The crumbs were left, and after weeks of searching, Anakin successfully comes across Grievous and heads straight for his command ship. Grievous's droids informed him of a Jedi cruiser heading for his location and ordered his entire fleet to engage, but he wasn't dealing with an ordinary Jedi. Anakin was the best pilot the galaxy had ever seen, and he easily dodged the onslaught whilst destroying Grievous's ships one by one. The general knows who this is instantly, as only one Jedi could do this. The infamous Skywalker had come for his revenge, but he would deny him this. Anakin successfully boards his command ship and heads straight for the bridge, where General Grievous was eagerly waiting. He begins taunting Anakin about Ahsoka, which only heightens Anakin's desire for revenge. But what tips him over the edge is when Grievous opens his coat and flashes Ahsoka's two lightsabers in front of him. Anakin feels blood-boiling rage when Grievous does this. He's never felt like this before, as the flame of the dark side ignited within him. Grievous had made one mistake. He had set off Anakin, and there was nothing that could stop him. Anakin uses the Force to crush Grievous's chest with all his might, which forces the general to his knees. Anakin could feel the general's heart with the Force and could crush it if he desired to. However, he wanted to savor the moment. He releases his grip and the general stands, weakened, but still determined to end Skywalker. But he was underestimating Anakin, who's tapped into the dark side for the first time and utilizes a whole new side of the Force. Anakin rushes forward and ducks under Grievous's first and second strike to block the third. They clash blades back and forth, but Anakin knows he's weakened the general beyond repair. The general attempts to increase the onslaught. However, Anakin's power had grown too strong as he jumps over Grievous and mid-air decapitates him and stabs his blade through his organic heart. He makes his way back to Coruscant, but before heading towards the Jedi Temple, he goes to his wife, whom he hasn't seen in weeks. He opens the door to find Obi-Wan sitting on his couch next to Padme. Anakin fumbles over his words. He's confused. What is Obi-Wan doing there, alone, with Padme? Before he can say anything, the two stand up and ask where Anakin has been, but look down at his hand to see him holding Grievous's head. Anakin's suspicious about Obi-Wan being there, but doesn't bring up his concerns yet. He looks at Obi-Wan and tells him to follow as they head to the council chambers. Anakin stands in the center and throws Grievous's head on the ground. He proclaims he's done what the council has failed to do in the past 12 years, defeated the droid general and turned the tide of the Clone War. He himself, Anakin Skywalker, has achieved this. But more importantly, he's avenged the death of his apprentice, whom the council was at fault for. He details what he learned about Grievous's fleet close to Florum, where Ahsoka was traveling for her mission. The council's negligence and indecisiveness led to her death and the death of so many other Jedi. Anakin got out all he wanted to say, and he looked around as the council members struggled to hide the shock on their faces. Skywalker has changed. The dark side of the Force leeches off him as he's given into his hatred and desire for revenge. Windu speaks up. He tells Anakin his need for revenge and disobeying the council's orders has breached the Jedi Code, and he has done this for the last time. He tells Anakin, for the time being, he will be suspended from the Jedi Order until he controls his emotions and learns to follow orders. Anakin's eyes go wide as he can't believe what he's hearing. He's just turned the tide of the war by killing Grievous. He's the hero of the Clone War. He's the strongest in the room, and they reward him by suspending him. The urge to ignite his lightsaber there and then is almost overwhelming, but he holds back this urge and walks out of the room. He heads straight back to Padme's house and embraces her in a long hug after the time apart. He tells Padme about what the Jedi have just done to him, expecting her to be on his side, but she tells Anakin that she agrees with their decision, that some time away could be good for him. She gets closer to him and tells Anakin he's not been the same in the past few weeks and that Ahsoka's death has changed him. He pulls back from her, telling Padme his quest for revenge and power is all to protect the ones he cares about, and that he's not doing it for himself. He must become powerful enough to protect them. He can't lose anyone else. He can't believe she'd take the Jedi's side, and the anger begins to take over. He brings up Obi-Wan and tells Padme He can sense his presence all over this house, that he must have come here quite a lot over the past few weeks, and accuses Padme of betraying their marriage. But she tells Anakin that Obi-Wan was just worried and came to see whether he had contacted Padme. But Anakin doesn't believe it. Could the last two people he cares about in the galaxy be having an affair and betraying him? He turns and storms out to seek advice from his one true friend. Palpatine greets Anakin warmly and congratulates him on his revenge against Grievous. He tells Anakin it was only natural he wanted revenge. He killed his apprentice and therefore he had to pay with his life. He should be proud of himself for this achievement. Anakin vents to Palpatine, telling him the Jedi or Padme don't agree, but Palpatine tells him they don't understand, that he and Anakin are the same, both care deeply about those close to them and will do anything to protect them. But Palpatine switches gears and tells Anakin he's noticed Padme acting different recently and that he knows she's hiding something. He tells Anakin he wasn't going to show him this, but now that he's no longer a Jedi, he feels no guilt. He brings up a video on his screen showing Obi-Wan visiting and leaving Padme's residence multiple times in the past few weeks whilst Anakin was away. Palpatine had Padme followed as she suspected she was working with the Separatists, but it turns out she was meeting with a Jedi in secret. Anakin can't believe what he's seeing. This is proof of what he suspected. Padme is betraying their marriage with his best friend. But the last video entrenches it in his mind as he watches Obi-Wan hug Padme as he exits. He's speechless. Of course, Obi-Wan and Padme aren't actually having an affair. Obi-Wan's simply worried about Anakin and visits Padme to see if she's heard about him. But Palpatine is a master manipulator and has bent the situation in Anakin's mind to make him believe she's being unfaithful. Anakin sits back down with his hands on his head, venting how his quest for power was to save those he cares about, and now they've both betrayed him. Done the thing they knew would hurt him the most. His mind's all over the place. His sole purpose in life has now been shattered and has left a gaping hole inside of him. What does he do now? What is his purpose? Palpatine stands up and tells Anakin he will never turn his back on him, and instead of seeking power to save those around him, he should seek it for himself. Ever since he's known him, he's been searching for a life greater than that of an ordinary Jedi, and he can give that to him. It's time to start living for himself. Anakin stands, and Palpatine proclaims he can give Anakin the power he's always wanted. All he must do is join him by his side and learn to know the power of the dark side of the Force. Palpatine manipulated Anakin perfectly. He left a gaping hole inside of him, a void that only he could fill. Anakin gets down on one knee and proclaims he will join him and is given the title Darth Vader. For the time being, Anakin takes residence at Palpatine's place and stays away from Padme, Obi-Wan, and the Jedi. The darkness has already consumed him, and he lets it guide him fully down its path. He begins his training in the dark side, and Palpatine uses his hatred towards those around him to hone his skills. He fuels Anakin's hatred towards the Jedi who's taken everything from him. He teaches him the Sith code, fueling his passion, strength, power, and thirst for victory, focusing on how to use the emotions of the Sith, hatred, anger, and control them rather than the other way around. Harness the power they produce and bend it to his will. His power increased at a rate Palpatine thought impossible, and there was no doubt he was the future of the Sith. Palpatine revealed his plan for Order 66, and together they plan the fine details. Palpatine brings his plan forward for the Battle of Coruscant, but instead of using it to test Anakin against Dooku, he uses it to bring Dooku to Coruscant for the purge. Weeks go by as the war rages on, and Anakin's training continues. But ultimately, the time has come. The Battle of Coruscant begins, and Dooku's entire fleet engages Republic forces. But in secret, he uses a small transport to bring himself to the surface, and Palpatine sneaks him into his office. The Sith get ready, writhing in their power, as Palpatine opens the comm system to every clone commander and executes Order 66. The three of them leave and walk towards the Jedi Temple, an army of clones behind them. The purge was dark and horrific, and the three decide to head towards the council chambers and let the clones clean up the weaker Jedi. They cut down knights and Padawans on their way until they caught what was left of the council on Coruscant leaving the chamber. Windu, Shakti, Aegon Kolar, Kit Fisto, Saisi Tin, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Oppo Rancisis. Sidious screamed as he jumped forward and thrusts his blade through Sisi and Agen in a flash, and Vader and Dooku follow in close pursuit. Anakin went straight for Kenobi, his hatred fueling him in this fight that he'd been imagining over the last few weeks. Dooku takes on Shaak Ti and Oppo Rancisis, quickly disposing of the old Rancisis and advancing towards Shaak Ti. Sidious attacked Windu and Fisto, and he dreamed about this day for decades. The difference in this timeline is that Anakin had begun his Sith training and learned to control his hatred and use it to his advantage, instead of it controlling him. Obi-Wan was shocked at how powerful Anakin had become in such a short period of time, and his defenses weren't strong enough for the Chosen One's power, who penetrates them and kills his former master. Anakin looks back to see Shaak Ti dead, and Windu is the last one left. Anakin and Dooku join Sidious's assault, and the Master knows his time has reached its end, as Sidious deals the final blow. The rest of the purge is carried out, and all the Jedi in the temple are executed. Sidious, Vader, and Dooku stand at the temple entrance, victorious, but Sidious proclaims that due to the rule of two, he can only have one apprentice, and right now, he is in breach of this. He tells them to decide amongst themselves as he boards a transport off to the Senate chamber to make his speech. Dooku and Anakin look at each other and act in a flash. Dooku blasts lightning at Skywalker, attempting to catch him off guard, but his youth works to his advantage. He blocks the lightning with his hands and focuses his effort in redirecting it towards the source and sends Dooku flying back against the wall. Dooku grabs his saber, but before he could ignite it, Anakin was upon him and removed his hand and lifted him in the air, squeezing his windpipe and thrust his lightsaber through his chest as the Count utters his last breath. Anakin meets back with Sidious after his declaration as Emperor, and they know they have one thing left to do. Together they go to the residence of Padme Amidala in order for Anakin to complete his final task. Palpatine emphasized that to become a true Sith, you must break away from the chains of your past to fully embrace your potential. The dark side had corrupted Anakin to the point of no return, and his increase in power was unstoppable. They enter the apartment, and Padme screams as she sees what Anakin has become. She goes to run, but Sidious stops her in place with the Force and asks Anakin what he'd like done with her. That this was the woman who betrayed him. She vowed to stay by his side forever, but she broke that promise. Anakin tells Sidious she means nothing to him as he walks forward and thrusts his blade through her and walks off as if nothing has changed. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know if you want a part 2 and what you think would happen. I appreciate all your support, and may the Force be with you.